Last-minute preparations are always necessary for an event, but having received their new electric motor from America the day before was cutting things really fine. ISIS, the team from South Australia, were bustling to ensure their vehicle was ready to go. Pre-race day at Oran Park just out of Sydney was the venue for the checking of vehicles for race and roadworthiness and to ensure that all was in order for the race the following day. One of the high-tech vehicles, Solar Flare from the University of Central Queensland, was undergoing much preparation. Requiring a little rewiring to tweak this vehicle into high performance gives us the opportunity to check out what these vehicles have tucked inside. Masses of wiring, controller boxes full of electronics, along with luxurious seating arrangements for the driver. On the underside of the solar arrays, the composite panel is a maze of holes to keep the weight down. Seating is tight for the one-person driver, as all available space on these solar-powered vehicles is taken up by solar cells. These are what power these vehicles, so in the effort to get these vehicles moving and to keep them moving, the driver has to compromise a little with comfort. One of the other high-tech vehicles is Aurora, which features two prototype motors developed by the CSIRO with efficiencies of around 98%. This vehicle, through wind tunnel tests, boasts of being one of the slippiest vehicles here. Solar Sat, on the other hand, has adopted the egg shape for their styling for aerodynamics, and inside, the driver, or I suppose rider, needs to be fit, as this is pedal assisted. With the top of Solar Flare now in place, there's not much in the way of headroom. But heck, this isn't just any Saturday afternoon joyride. This is CitiPower Sunrace 99. CitiPower Sunrace 99 is being run over the next 7 days, going from Sydney to Canberra, Wagga Wagga, Hay, Mildura, Swan Hill, Bendigo and finally ending up in Melbourne. Covering over 1,700 kilometres, this race is going to test the best of them. Now for some this could end up being one of the most gruelling events of all time. Team SolarSat's vehicle is based on a recumbent bicycle. While it does have battery power, this vehicle is also pedal assisted. So why go to all this trouble for a race? Let's hear from race director John Herner.
What we're trying to achieve with CitiPower Sunrace 99 is to bring an awareness to people about the developments in sustainable energy technology and the advances in electric vehicle technology, and make a point of how these relate to one another. In this year's Sunrace, we have the most amazing solar cars from all across the states of Australia. Wonderful cars from Queensland, from Victoria, ACT, New South Wales. We have electric vehicles embodying these technologies in practical on-road vehicles. And what we're trying to do with this event is create that awareness of sustainable energy technologies, of renewable energy that can be harnessed and used for the transport of the future. And we believe that will be electric vehicles.
So the pain the Team SolarSat are going to go through is to bring awareness to the public about solar and electric vehicles. Well, with all this new stuff like solar-powered and electric-powered cars, I suppose the public does need educating. But new? Well, I thought so until I found out differently. Solar-powered cars are something of a new phenomena, but alas, electric cars are not. The first crude electric car is believed to have been built around 1839 by Robert Anderson of Aberdeen in Scotland. But more of that later. Here at Oran Park, vehicles are being trialled to measure performance, to check reliability and for roadworthiness. Each of the vehicles will be on the open highway with a lead vehicle and another following to inform traffic of the vehicle in front. So each vehicle must have brakes, brake lights and turning indicators. But the vehicles must have reached their destination by the end of the day, as no night driving is permitted. This little race car is Viper from Lake Tuggeranong College in Canberra. Powered by batteries, this electric car has a motor mounted in the rear wheel. As we have seen, some of these cars can get up a bit of speed, but nothing like this one. The Porsche 911 conversion. Equipped with a 200 horsepower electric motor, this car has the capability to out-accelerate her petrol counterpart. This entry from Mitcham Girls High School in Adelaide, called ISIS, is one of the unique solar vehicles in this race. It's a two-seater with a licensed senior student in the front with a junior student behind. The driver is responsible for steering, where the one behind is responsible for accelerating and monitoring the output from the solar panels. This unusual one is from Orange in New South Wales. Named Bush Ranger, this one is built out of tubular steel and clad in aluminium. Powered by conventional batteries, this is one of the few that has a gearbox. Mildura Magic from the Sunrace College of TAFE tries out. Like an oversized kids car, maybe this one will have great application around the family home where the kids can drive to their heart's content. And the only time the parents have to worry is when they hear an impact with something. With smart lines, this EV is a combination of battery power and solar energy. Propulse is another of the petrol production car conversions. Based on a Ford Laser, this EV can mix its talent with a Porsche. Maybe not in acceleration, but it does have a comfortable top speed. This sleek solar car is Sunswift from the University of New South Wales. This, like all the solar cars, is covered from head to toe in solar cells. Unlike the battery-powered vehicles, these beauties just love bright sunshine. The more they get, the better, unlike the driver who is inside. Providing cooling in these confined spaces is a priority, as is airflow. This is another of the electric vehicles. With the owner and developer of the T-Flux motor, Paul Ellington, at the wheel, this race is going to be one to test the inventor. And that's not to say that all the others won't be tested. Some of the country that is to be covered is not exactly suited to what you would call free sailing. Spirit of Canberra, another entry from Lake Tuggeranong College, is another of the sun lovers. Possibly the largest of all the solar vehicles, this one is impressive with a forward-positioned driver. With the low level and sleekness of these cars, these are not exactly the car for either the overweight or big-limbed person. In fact, after a while, one begins to wonder where the space is to be comfortable. Aurora, the last of the solar cars, has a long history in solar car building and racing. Some of the other cars on the grid are ex-Aurora, yet these people are taking it to an even higher level. Over the years, millions of dollars have gone into designing and building solar cars, and this one, quoted as being the slipperiest of them all, is no exception. With that known, the others are going to be doing their darnest to pip it at the finals banner. With all preparations being completed, it's on to race day. Race day 1 begins at the Rocks in Sydney. The Rocks is the place of the first settlement in Australia, so in some ways it's fitting for a new form of sustainable energy to be showcased where Australia had its beginnings from the efforts of another sustainable energy that was in wide use in those days. Wind power. That was a form of sustainable energy, often unreliable, but still widely available, which was used to bring new settlers to this country. Early on the Sunday morning, teams arrived on the foreshore at the Rocks. It was all hands on deck to unload these cars and get them into position. Once into their starting position, some took time out for breakfast while others undertook last-minute race preparations. Officials were also busy getting the schedule right for today's race. With the cars lined up ready for day 1, the skies were clearing and day 1 looked promising. As the clock neared 10 a.m, drivers were getting themselves comfortable for today's run. Two-way communications between drivers and team management is being used to ensure safety and to maximise the returns from power development and consumption. It was nearing time to get the race underway, and the nearer it came, the hotter the day was becoming. For the drivers in the solar cars, the temperature was becoming unbearable, and thankfully team members came to their aid. The clock strikes 10 a.m, and for Solar Flare, who is on pole position, is away.
University of Central Queensland.
The next one out is Aurora, the car that established over 100 kilometres per hour last year on one section of the race.
This is the most amazing entry. This is an entry that we have.
Spirit of Canberra from Lake Tuggeranong College in Canberra is next in hot pursuit.
Now the challenger, the Sunswift car from the University of New South Wales.
Next out is Sunswift from the University of New South Wales. This entry has just completed a run from Perth.
Now we have a veteran from South Australia, the Mitcham Girls College, the Mitcham High School from Adelaide.
The unique two-seater solar car driven and backed by the girls from Mitcham Girls High School in Adelaide.
Now, Mildura Magic, where are you?
Next to head out is Mildura Magic, the combination solar and battery-powered car.
The electric car field.
Next is Team Impact, the Porsche with a 200 horsepower electric motor. This car has 28 lead-acid batteries in series weighing 560 kilos. Following next in line is the Ford Laser electric vehicle Propulse. This car has 13 Odyssey batteries and both these cars have a range between 80 and 100 kilometres. This entry from Orange, the colour city, with the car to match is Bush Ranger. John Didisco is behind the wheel. Next off is Viper, an EV also, and a second entry from Lake Tuggeranong College in Canberra.
An amazing entry from Victoria.
The next one, the Egg Solar Sat, powered by pedals and batteries.
Next car up is the original.
And the last of the race cars, the EV T-Flux.
Our last vehicle here is...
At the very end of the pack is Weather Watch. Dick Duncan is the man in this outfit, and we'll find out what he's up to later. Today this race takes us from Sydney down the highway to the Australian capital of Canberra. City traffic was beginning to build, and for us to catch the leaders we would have to move. Problems were already starting to rise, and more than we realise right now. Out on the open road, Viper is cruising along nicely in the side lane with the support vehicles in front and behind. A little further up the road, Bush Ranger was doing much the same at a comfortable even speed. A little further up the road is Solar Flare from the University of Central Queensland. This solar car is beginning to revel in the bright sunshine with good even speed. Being the first off the grid, we thought we were doing pretty well in catching up with this one until we arrived at the first stop. Pheasant's Nest was the first official stop, and as we arrived, Spirit of Canberra, which was third off the grid, was leaving. It had already done its obligatory half-hour break. The team of Sunshark were reasonably relaxed during their break. Then everyone was scurrying. Their half-hour break was up, and it was time to try and catch Spirit of Canberra, who now had a good lead. For these cars to be leaving when we have just arrived means that these solar vehicles must be making good time and with good speed. The conditions today have been ideal. With few of the others at the rest stop, the rest of the field is really a long way behind. There's no way the others are going to catch these sleek solar beauties today. Arriving in Canberra, all was settling down in the afternoon sunshine. Although the wind was up, this didn't stop the solar cars from sunbaking as they recharged their batteries. Spread out in the lawns in front of Old Parliament House, there were solar cars to the left and to the right making the most of this afternoon light. During this time, I spoke with Darren Bell, the project manager from the University of Queensland's Sunshark Solar Racing Team, about the history of Sunshark.
It started in 1995 when a couple of students came up with an idea that it would be interesting to run a solar car from Darwin to Adelaide in the '96 World Solar Challenge. The engineering students went out and gathered support from sponsors and various organisations within the university, and Sunshark was born. 6 months later, the development stage of the car started, with the car being fully designed by thesis projects, and then we went into the actual construction stage just prior to the World Solar Challenge with about 6 months to go. The car was completed just in time to get to Darwin, and we performed extremely well. We came first in our class, we were fifth in the world, we were the first Australian car across the line and the first university team across the line, so we were very happy.
After competing in Japan in a little time out, Sunshark was stripped inside with almost everything being rebuilt. A new top shell was built with new solar cells, a new motor controller, new electronics, and a new rear wheel to go with the new motor. On the road today, Sunshark didn't sit too much in the slow speed lane. Averaging 88.5 kilometres per hour, they did the leg from Sydney to Canberra in a very comfortable time. The solar cells on these solar cars are encapsulated in fiberglass. Fiberglass is laid top and bottom, and then the resin is poured into it. This makes the solar cells flexible, where under normal conditions they are extremely brittle. This allows the cells to be bent over the upper shell to follow the shape of the vehicle's design. On the evening of the first day, and like all the days to follow, a meeting of all team members, officials, support crews and event management takes place to have a round table on how the day went. At this time, we can see by the number of people here that the entourage that is required for an event such as this is quite big. Of the 16 or so vehicles that are involved in this event, around 250 people are involved keeping these cars safely on the road. At the start and the end of the day, the catering that is put on by the host towns is quite extensive to feed this hungry lot. The morning of day 2 at Canberra sees everyone up early doing last-minute repairs and general maintenance, as was often required. At this time, I spoke to one of the drivers from the Spirit of Canberra team, Sarah Harris, and to some of the other drivers about what it's like driving these solar cars.
I'm one of the drivers, and we are now just about to go off first off the grid. We're looking forward to another good day, hopefully. And yesterday we had a really good run. The car, it's been running really well.
My name's Caroline Bomber. I'm with the Whirlpool Aurora team. And as you can see, it's all pretty cramped in here and particularly hot, but once you're out on the open road and the sun's shining and you're cruising around at 110, it's a fantastic feeling.
Okay, my name is David Q. I'm from Central Queensland University, and this is a solar flare car, Capricorn Solar Flare. Our main sponsors are Stanwell Power Station, and it's pretty bad in here in the way of hot, in the way of heatness, and you lose a lot of moisture, but it's good once you're moving because there's a bit of air circulation, but after about 2 hours you start to get a bit tired and a bit cramped, but it's on a whole it's really good to be in here and experience it.
Hi, I'm Joanne Lawrence and I'm in the ISIS team, Mitcham Girls High School from Adelaide, and this is the first time I've driven the car in this race, so it's very exciting today. It does get a bit hot. The roof is very hot at the moment actually. When you're driving along, the wind comes in from that side, which cools things down a bit, but it does get pretty hot in here.
The race leader in the solar-powered class, Spirit of Canberra, leads out on day 2. This leg today takes us to Wagga Wagga with one stop on the way. Out on the open road, Team Impact with a Porsche takes it easy up the hill. Unlike the solar car Solar Flare, it's full speed ahead as it's running purely on solar energy. Now, just to give the comparison between the EV and solar, Viper is going at a slower pace up the hill, but in the background, Sunswift from the University of New South Wales is not sparing the reserves. On a sunny day like today, it's let's see what she can do. After all, in these sorts of conditions, the energy is an endless supply, and Sunswift easily overtakes Viper. Another one overtaken is T-Flux, who is, like Viper, reserving as much as possible. At the scheduled stop at the Ash Service Centre, Sunshark's break is over. Now, to meet the deadline to get away and stay on time, everyone available is required to take this vehicle up and get it on the road. In the rush to beat the clock, not everything fits first go, but the time is met and they're soon back on the road. Out on the open road, Sunswift is really speeding along. The roads, although bumpy in places, pose no problem for the fine-tuned suspension that these cars are set up with. Now, just in case you're wondering how these solar cars work, it goes something like this. The solar arrays on these cars produce voltage. This voltage is sent to peak power trackers, which converts that voltage down to a workable level which is used in the car. The cars are equipped with a series of 6 or 12 volt batteries, which provides a voltage level throughout the vehicle. The array charges these batteries through the peak power trackers. The batteries then in turn powers the motor controller and various other circuits. The motor controller tells the motor what to do by giving it its power. The solar array keeps the batteries full, and that's how everything runs. Further up the road, Solar Flare is showing her stuff. The roads pose no problems for her either. Solar Flare is an ex-Aurora vehicle and was built in the mid to late 1980s. The motor in this solar car is a T-Flux motor built by Paul Ellington. Coming through the hilly country is trying on the EVs. To push these cars uphill saps the energy from the batteries quickly if not controlled properly. To counter excessive draw on battery reserves, the current being drawn by the motor is monitored all the time. Solar Flare coming through the cutting on the way to Wagga Wagga is certainly making the most of these good conditions. The speed that she is able to run at is posing no problems for other vehicles she is sharing the road with. Isis from the Mitcham Girls High School in Adelaide is finding the going slower with the hills and shady trees reducing solar power. But it's nowhere near as tough as these guys are doing it. At Wagga Wagga, Mildura Magic is pulled through the finish line. So what happened here?
We had a very difficult run coming out of Sydney where it was uphill and we had traffic lights a third of the way up, so we actually had to stop on an incline, wait till the traffic lights changed to green and then start up again. And I think that's what initially caused the motor to overheat. From then on it was nothing but trouble, and we pulled the motor to pieces today and the armature was completely burnt out.
John Didisco from Bushranger hasn't had things all his own way either.
Well, yesterday we were unfortunate enough to blow a rear tyre, and I was on one of the biggest hills, would you believe? And being the rear tyre takes the longest to fix. However, I think we got it over in about 20 minutes and we're on our way.
Day 3 and on the start line is Sunshark. Today our run takes us from Wagga Wagga to Hay. Traffic in Wagga Wagga surprised us all. 10 a.m. and we were in peak hour. On the open road, good sunshine was allowing the cars to again punch out the speed. Spirit of Canberra certainly wasn't sparing the horses here, and hot on her heels was Aurora. The electric vehicles, on the other hand, were doing their utmost to reserve as much of their power as possible, as up front there are some hills to encounter. It's hills like this one that are most rewarding for the electric vehicles, on the way down. Those that are equipped with regen systems can make the most of rebuilding their reserves, but too many hills with steep climbs can soon drain the reserves. The solar cars, on the other hand, providing the sun is shining and the cars aren't covered by too much shadow from overhanging trees, can pretty well go as fast as a car will allow without draining the battery reserves. With an easy downhill run, generally there is an uphill battle to go with it, and here we see the results of that previous uphill run. Endeavouring to reserve power, speed is reduced to maintain the current drawn to a specific level if possible, as this requires going slower on a busy highway such as this. A build-up of traffic happens. For the anxious general road user, this can be frustrating. I spoke to Dimitri Lavic, the owner of the Porsche of Team Impact, about driving an electric vehicle in the country.
Performance is excellent in city driving when you're trying to keep up with traffic on Parramatta Road, but for this country driving where you have long distances at sustained, hopefully high speeds, you really do consume a lot of energy. It's been very interesting entering this car in the race because most of our experience has been with the car driving in the city conditions, so that's a lot of stop-start driving, a bit of freeway driving. On the race, it's quite a different scenario, obviously, and it's very, very interesting to see what are the capability of the car at sustained speed over long distance. Part of the weight reduction we did on the car originally was to take out air conditioning, so it's quite hot in the car. To reduce the drag, we'd actually wind all the windows up, and the guy just has a water bottle and a small towel there to wipe himself down. But it's really an amazing event to be associated with these solar cars, which are such high quality. I mean, the solar cars can just whiz all day really under full sun power, in the full sunlight, where we need a very big drink of electricity after about 80k or 100k.
And this one, Solasat, is specialised in its own way too. Glenn Bowman from Team Solasat explains this unusual little car.
The Synergy vehicle is a human power assisted electric vehicle, and this year we have enclosed it in a reflex aerodynamic shell. The way we use the recumbent bicycle chassis within the aerodynamic shell is to pedal up to speed to save the batteries from being drained. We then let the T-flux motor take over, and we continue to pedal in high gear to enable to take any strain off the motor as we're going along. At this stage we have 14 gears, 2 gears in the mountain drive at the front and 7 gear in-hub gears in the rear. On this race our achievements to date have been, in speed-wise, top speed 68 kilometres per hour, and today on the flat we averaged 45 kilometres an hour with a top speed of 61 kilometres an hour. Today, on electric and pedal, we got 80 kilometres. So we hope to be able to improve that with a bit more knowledge on battery charging and continuing fine weather.
With full cloud cover and rain, radio discussions put forward the true feelings of the solar team's reaction to this inclement weather.
I see the ambient temperature at 27, that must be quite comfortable. That's good. Here we go, we're going to get Bill doing 40k an hour.
Things may not be going that fast at the moment, but John Ransom, the project manager for SunSwift, tells of greater things they've done.
We've just come to this race after attempting to beat the Perth to Sydney record for a solar car, which was 4,000 kilometres. So I believe that even though our car is the newest car here, it's probably done more kilometres than any other car has.
For the electric vehicles, the overcast and rainy weather has posed little problems. But for the solar vehicles, this was possibly their most embarrassing day, for speed was almost nowhere to be seen now. As the rain came down, the EVs revelled in delight as the solar vehicles, deprived of their life-giving sunshine, crawled along the open roads and the EV entourage sailed past. In front here is Aurora crawling along at a snail's pace, but this is not always the case. Dave Fuchuk explains.
Aurora was built especially for the World Solar Challenge in 1996, where it moved from 9th to 4th place in the first 20 minutes and then crashed. So we're looking for an outing to show that it in fact is one of the world's best solar cars.
Well, from the expressions on the faces of the Spirit of Canberra team in that support car, they won't be proving Dave wrong today. So as they crawl along too, let's hear from Jamie Green from Lake Tuggeranong College on the history of this solar vehicle.
It's a solar car built over the last year, starting in June, 2 years ago I guess it is now. We built entirely at the college from aerospace composite materials using advanced techniques, all moulds we had to build at the college. We didn't outsource any of the building. Over 7,000 student hours to build the car.
Finally at hay at the end of this gloomy overcast day, Aurora comes into town after a slow afternoon run. Where these vehicles are usually first in after a day's run, today was not in their favour. Following close behind is Viper. Viper's pace today has been fairly well plain cruising, and they didn't have the sun in their eyes today. The conditions today too were ideal for Bushranger, who sat proudly at the finish post. Next morning we spoke with Dimitri Lavic.
This car was converted from a petrol-powered motor to an electric motor. We took out the petrol motor and the gearbox and put in a 150 kilowatt or 200 horsepower electric motor. The batteries are lead-acid batteries, and we have 28 batteries in series. They weigh 560 kilos, so that adds about 300 kilos to the weight of the car. The performance of the car is similar or it's better in acceleration than the original SC, 911 SC. The top speed though is only 130 kilometres an hour. It's limited by the gearbox in that we've made a special modification to the gearbox where we run with only one gear, which is first gear. We've taken out second, third, fourth, fifth and reverse. To go forward, we press a green button on the right-hand side. The middle green button is neutral, and reverse is a red button. So theoretically, the car could go as fast in reverse as it can go in forward. The motor's doing about 12,000 RPM at 130 kilometres an hour, and we can cruise on the freeway at 100 kilometres an hour quite comfortably with the motor doing about 10,000 RPM. So it's quite an interesting conversion from the point of view we don't have any clutch or any gear stick. So it's a very easy car to drive, just the accelerator and the brake.
Next out is Propulse. This is day 5 and today the race runs from Hay to Mildura. Propulse is the manufacturer of the electric drive system in this vehicle. This car has all the same modern cons of the normal Ford Laser, with air conditioning in the car and a normal heating system. Next to head out is Bushranger. With a good finish yesterday, Bushranger is in the lead position of the EVs. Next in hot pursuit is Viper. Aurora is the first of the solar cars out today. With good sunshine, the record that Aurora set up last year at 101 kilometres per hour is up for grabs. They will be doing their best to beat that. The others in the field will be doing their best to beat Aurora and the speed that was set last year. Spirit of Canberra, who is not far behind Aurora, is going to be the main contender, as Jamie Green explains.
You can really push the speed a bit higher than what your speed limit is on the open highways. So we've been really sitting on, in the nice weather, open highway speed, so it's been fantastic.
But Sunswift may not be in the challenge. Using the battery pack which is their backup, they feel that they may have the smallest battery pack of all the solar cars. For the small country town of Hay, CitiPower Sunrace has certainly livened the town up. Although the town often experiences blistering heat in excess of 40 degrees in summer, it's not a common sight to see solar-powered vehicles being driven down the main street. Sunshark and her lively blue and gold colours certainly add to the interest here. Now, Solar Flare may be one of the oldest vehicles, but slow on the open road she is not. Having been originally developed by the Aurora Vehicles Association, this vehicle is being used for other purposes. But there is in the race one vehicle that is a bit slower. Team ICE is comprising 13 student members and 5 staff, but heck, they are having the time of their life. And behind this solar vehicle is a hot passion for chocolate. Solar Sat 2, by all accounts on the radio, are having fun too. But these lads, at the end of the day, are somewhat tired after the day's run, which could be anything up to 300 kilometres. Out on the open road, catching up to some of these solar cars could take some doing, as each one is out to break the record that's been set by Aurora last year. Finally finding an elevated position which is virtually non-existent in this flat barren land, we found a channel bank and we sat back to see how these cars could fly. Here comes Aurora, so let's hear a little more from Dave Fuchuk.
As it's running here, we're on lead-acid batteries versus silver zincs, and standard array versus University of New South Wales experimental cells, which have quite a bit more power than this produces. Now, Aurora decided in '96 that we would not be going in the World Solar Challenge unless we had a car that was technically capable of winning. And so this is Australia's best effort at trying to get to world-level technology.
And Sunswift, John Ransom again.
We've also got a CSIRO wheel motor, which is very similar to that used by Aurora and UQ and Lake Tuggeranong. We've got a chrome ollie space frame and 3 wheels, 2 at the front that steer, double wishbone suspension, and a rear trailing arm. We've also got a CSIRO wheel motor. The car is pretty similar in design to, well, it has elements that are similar to all of the other cars that are here.
With brilliant sunshine, all these solar cars are really starting to show their talent. Slow they may be in heavy cloudy weather, but in ideal conditions like this, they are revelling in the golden sunshine. Solar Flare is also going great guns. Although not outdoing the competition, this car is actually a hand-me-down, even though they pay good money for it. This car is being used to build a team up, which will be able to compete on a more competitive basis when the new car is developed from what they learn on this race. Coming up behind Solar Flare is Dick Duncan from Weatherwatch. What is he really up to?
I provided the service of the watt hours and the temperature, the wind for all the teams. The one thing that will tie all the sun races together, as it has in the World Solar Challenge, is the weather data. The weather data then is matched year to year. This is then used to find out whether the cars have improved, and the only way you can tell that is by having the same weather data year to year.
Now, about their appetite for chocolate, the girls at Mitcham Girls High School sold $15,000 of chocolate bars to their school community in order to get this car up and running so they could be on this race. This equates to about 10 chocolate bars per kilometre. Now, just to give you some idea of what the passenger in ISIS does, let's tune into their radio.
She said everything's fine.
Okay, thank you. Tell them, can we have the motor temperature, please?
38 degrees.
And the battery temperature?
49 degrees.
Okay, and can we have the battery voltage, please?
121.
Okay, now the motor current.
7.9. Motor voltage 117.
And solar amps, please, Helen.
7.5.
Thank you.
I'm having an excellent time here. It's a beautiful 25.9 degrees in here. Everything's running as it should be, and it's really good.
Time for a crew change, and this is why you need to be fit and young.
There's so much wind out there.
Jump out quick, well, at least you're not getting hot.
This is what cars are doing.
Right, Shirley?
Can't feel me getting out.
Hurry up, gotta go.
That's good.
40.5 dollars. Oh, that's lovely.
Do you need some water at all?
We just take a flight off of us, yeah.
Oh, God. That's Aaron's water. Right, what's that forward reverse switch in there? What do you leave it for?
Solar Flare doesn't run on chocolate bars, but I think after that fantastic effort of the girls, they might be going after the chocolate bars to get their new car up and running. As the country in this outback region of New South Wales is as flat as a pancake, the advantages of not having to run up hills makes a big difference on the speed that these cars are able to do today. However, for Solar Flare, the advantage of a flat surface is not just theirs alone. Everyone else out there is making the most of it too.
Battery change. Expected one.
A little further up the road, Viper is on the side of the road, but this isn't a routine stop.
Driving along, there's a pop and the valve stem went straight off. Instant flat tyre.
With all hands on deck while the driver waits patiently, Ben Hales from the team talks about Viper.
It originally started off as an electric vehicle project in our engineering science class at Lake Tuggeranong College. Yeah, it's basically we just made it from scraps in the workshop really at the start, and then just progressed on as like a next generation True Blue vehicle. It's basically just a clone of that. In the electrical system, we're using 8 12-volt battery packs, Genesis battery packs, and a DC brushed motor, which can be rated up to about 90 amps.
The last scheduled stop before Mildura was Houston.
6K to go, AEV, 6K.
With not far to go, these guys from SolarSat were becoming really ecstatic. This day has been hot and with a pretty strong wind, so although the run has been fairly flat going, this has been a hard leg.
Oh, that's right, good on you.
After repairing part of the front end at Houston, Bush Ranger is back on the road. John Didusco again.
It's got just an conventional electric motor, DC permanent magnet motor. I'm running a motor controller in it, a Curtis controller. I've also got a gearbox in it, a motorbike gearbox, so that I can utilise the current to its best advantage. If it appears it's going over its current rating, I can drop it back a gear and keep it within that current rating to increase my range. So
Yeah.
How does that benefit the power loading on the motor?
Well, basically what it does, it takes a big load off the motor, reduces the current that it needs for the controller. The controller will put out a lot of current, but this way I can maintain a speed and keep the current lower by using the gearbox. It's just an addition to help me extend my range. It's very good on hills.
On the lawns at the waterfront at Mildura, most of the solar cars were already in and charging their batteries. Some of the EVs were in too, but Viper, which had a flat tyre today, was running a little on the late side. It was at this time that I caught up with Ben Bowman of Team SolarSet to find out how their little car works.
In the Synergy vehicle, we have Mountain Drive, which is a double-geared planetary system, allowing us a 1-to-1 ratio or a 2.5-to-1 ratio. Moving back to the control panel, we've installed personal comfort for the driver through a fan, 12-volt fan. We have our speed and various related telemetry there. We can follow our battery current. We have a tester for our batteries to test each battery individually for their current levels. Here we have our speed, voltage control. Here we have our pulse width modulation control. Indicators left and right, and of course our hazard lights down the bottom. We have ducting, as you can see, all to help the driver with to keep out the hot weather that we've been experiencing. And we also have ducting coming through the bottom, which is to cool the batteries and the motor. The steering here, we have Acumen type steering, side to side, very obvious, very familiar with all recumbent bicycles, this style of steering. Our 5 batteries, which make up our 60 volts, are hidden away under our seat. Behind our seat is our controller for our motor, and the motor is up the back there. We have all of our safety features, automatic cutouts, fuse on this side, and our external cutout on that part as well.
We're Team SolarSat.
I'm Glenn Bowman.
I'm Glenn Downey.
I'm Glenn Stewart.
I'm Elaine Stewart.
And I'm Harry Gordon.
And I'm Harry Nixon.
Day 5, and today's run is from Mildura to Swan Hill. The Porsche leads out, but let's hear from Mark Oman from Propulse, the red laser that is following.
Propulse manufactures the complete drive system, the controller, AC motor, charger, DC-DC converter. And we're here just to show that electric vehicles are practical and can be used for and are ideal for inner city driving. The car is powered by an AC electric drive system. We have 13 Odyssey batteries as the source of power, and that via an AC controller powers a 3-phase AC induction motor. We have a maximum range of 100 kilometres. The first leg from Sydney we did 70 kilometres, which we were very happy because it's very hilly. I think we went the furthest distance out of all the EVs, and we have a bit of problems with charging because there's not much. There's no charging stations, so we're just using power points out of petrol stations and trying to get a charge as quickly as possible, but we're pretty much limited to 2 legs a day. We can't do the whole 3 legs because there's just not enough time. And we're in second place, which is only 2 cars in our class, so second place it is. Dimitri's Porsche has been beating us during the legs, but he has a few more batteries than us, about 200 kilos more, so he should go a bit further.
Where a pioneer of yesterday, Big Lizzie, stands silent in the Parker Reckless, the new technology of today soon passes through. Big Lizzie, incidentally, had a top speed of 1.5 miles per hour, which is a far cry from what these solar cars and electric cars today can do. But Big Lizzie, built in 1915, was capable of pulling a load of over 75 tonnes, so although it may have looked archaic, it certainly had some potential. From pioneers of old to a pioneer of today, I spoke to Paul Ellington about his new electric motor.
Well, the motor works, it's a very revolutionary principle. It works it doesn't have any iron in the stator of the motor, and it works on the quite different principles that normal motors work. Instead of the magnets actually passing across the windings, it works on the principle of a magnet actually passing inside a coil, which is like a cylinder. Now, the invention basically was how to do that and make it function. And the reason why it's called a T-flux motor is a toroidal flux, and that's the shape of the flux density that we see in the motor.
Here's Amber with a little more on this unique solar vehicle, ISIS.
We've travelled, in one day we've done about 150 k's, which for our speed of about 45 k's an hour we think is pretty impressive. And we set a new top speed this race at 85.2 k's an hour. Previously we've only reached just past 70, so again we're pleased with this. ISIS is a unique car from the point of view that it's a two-seater vehicle. The drivers are senior girls who have their provisional licences, and the passengers navigate, control motor currents, give back readings and communicate with the support vehicles. We've designed the two-seater, although it's less energy efficient, to involve the entire school in giving both junior and senior girls the turn at driving.
With Sunswift really belting along here, John Ransom has a little more on this car.
It's a short car, 4.5 metres long, with a driver located centrally. I guess that you describe our performance as steady. We're accustomed to using a bit better batteries than this. We sort of got caught out. These batteries were actually purchased as a backup for our lithium-ion batteries, which we use from Perth to Sydney. And we didn't really plan to run them in this event, but they were all we had, so we've made do.
Going at a slower speed through the Mallee country, I asked Ben Bowman about the future for SolarSat.
We hope to actually have this vehicle as a solar-assisted pedal power recumbent bicycle in an aerodynamic shell. Where that comes into it, there is available to us a whale tail for the back of the vehicle, in which we could put 2 solar panels. That will assist the batteries to recharge. We hope also to put in regenerative braking, so that as we're going downhill, we can also charge the batteries. Hopefully later in the piece we'll be able to maybe even change the type of motor to an in-wheel type motor, which would give this a superb performance ability in its power to push it along. To date, the aerodynamics have been fantastic, so the first step of this vehicle to test the aerodynamics has been good. The next step is to regenerative braking and solar panels, and we'll take it from there.
Now that will be something to see. Finally arriving in Swan Hill, SolarSat makes its way to the finish point. T-Flux makes it home, and not far behind is Propulse. John Herner, the event director, makes the most of this opportunity as well. As all the solar vehicles are in, this is a real electric vehicle finish with Team Impact coming under the banner. After 5 days on the road, this day's end seems to hold more for relaxation for most teams than at any other time in the race. And this time, everyone is making the most of it. day 6, and today it's from Swan Hill to Bendigo. It's the solar car's turn to take lead position. Sunshark is first off the mark. Mildura Magic, although out of the race, is continuing on with show and tell and gaining lots of interest. After a quiet night in Swan Hill, the teams are certainly refreshed as the cars today seem to have a little more spirit about them. They certainly aren't dawdling here, and believe it or not, 100 years ago, a Belgian wasn't either. Camille Janatsky built a torpedo-shaped car called Jamais Content, translated meaning never satisfied. This car was the first car to go over 60 miles per hour. It actually went at a staggering 65.79 miles per hour. For those who don't know that measurement, that's 105.87 kilometres per hour. And the power plant of that car? Electric. So in some ways, this CitiPower Sunrace 99, you could say, is a 100-year celebration of the first car, an electric car, to go a mile a minute. But that was an exception. Most of the electric cars at the turn of the century travelled at around 15 to 20 miles per hour, and the range about 25 to 30 miles. Today, these cars are getting around the 80 to 100 kilometre range, and that's okay if you're in the city. And that's exactly where the electric car had found its favour. By 1930, the Melbourne electric car had a range of between 50 to 75 miles. Here comes T-Flux, so it's back to Paul Ellington about the big advantages of his electric motor.
Firstly, it's extremely light for the same output power. It has a very small number of magnets, and they're keyed into the rotor very solidly, so it has the potential of revving at very high speeds without disintegrating. It has a plastic casing, so it's mostly made from plastic. Just about 90% of the motor is made from plastic. Therefore, we feel that in production it should be far cheaper to produce than conventional motors are these days. It has an efficiency up around the 95 to 96%, and it would make an ideal motor for use in refrigeration, air conditioning, and in industrial uses, saving potentially up to 10 to 15% of energy usage for these people.
High efficiency motors today? Yes, and that is one of the reasons that electric cars were in vogue 100 years ago. DC motors and lead-acid batteries were sophisticated in comparison to the petrol engines of the time. Worldwide, between 1893 and 1900, at least 3 companies in France, 2 in Germany, 2 in Britain and 10 in the United States of America were building electric cars. In 1900, of the 4,200 cars sold in America, 40% were steam-driven, 38% were electric, and only 22% were petrol. Now that is interesting. The biggest sales were in steam, followed by electric. Many people today are under the impression that steam is dead and gone. In fact, steam is used today more than ever. Virtually everything that is electric is powered by electricity generated from steam and in turn water. I suppose you could say that the modern computer of today is steam-driven, for that's where the electricity comes from. Well, this is also where electric vehicles come in, and the whole point of this race. Power stations are generating power 24 hours a day, and while a majority of the population is asleep, that energy is basically being wasted where it could be put to good use, like charging cars. This in turn would reduce the atmospheric pollution in our cities, make the place quieter and freer of all those smells that petrol cars produce. Most people in everyday commuting drive less than 100 kilometres a day. While solar cars like this may not be the answer, the 2 electric vehicles, the Porsche from Team Impact and the Ford Laser Propulse, both are examples of the technology that is with us now that can use this wasted energy. And that is why a major supplier of electricity is behind this event, to bring awareness to the people that it's cheap to run electric cars, because they want this surplus of electricity used rather than be wasted. It's too expensive to shut the plants down, and there's too much to store. So why aren't solar cars going to be a mode of transport?
Solar car here has 750 cells, nearest 2, over the whole thing, separately put onto the shell. The power we get out of array is a little less than your hairdryer that you'd use every morning, and so it's about 1.1 kilowatts, which is really not very much, and we can do about 82 kilometres an hour on that.
The other problem that solar-powered cars have is the problem of 2 days ago on the leg to Hay. The efficiencies of solar arrays is diminished in cloudy and rainy weather, and for this to become a form of transport would in effect be like going back to the days of the sailing ships which relied on the wind. So the answer is the electric vehicle. Behind the push for the electric vehicle is also the concern that in the future the supply of oil for petrol is going to become a little on the tight side. Every day in Australia, 820,000 barrels of oil are consumed every day. Of the world's consumption of oil, this represents 1.1% of total oil consumed. Australia's consumption of 820,000 barrels of oil per day equates to 130,380,000 litres of oil. The world being 71,670,000 barrels is 11,395,530,000 litres of oil per day. Now that's enough to cover 11.4 square kilometres with 1 metre of oil, or about enough to put 20 centimetres of oil over Sydney Harbour every single day. At this rate of consumption, oil reserves are projected to last about another 50 years. As the electric vehicles and solar cars complete day 6 at Bendigo, the camaraderie that is felt between teams is clearly expressed and welcomed by the teams. Dimitri Lovich from Team Impact summed it up quite well.
It's great fun to get to the host town at the end of the day and enjoy the hospitality and the barbecue and have a few beers and talk about how much better we're going to do tomorrow when it's downhill.
Day 7, and this is a relaxed leg from Bendigo to Melbourne. As we catch solar flare coming down the hill on one of the last legs to Melbourne, we break them there and pick up the teams as they do a lap of honour before coming through the finish banner on the shores of Albert Park Lake. As they do this, let's hear from Ross Gilmore from CitiPower on the Sunrace.
Well, we've just finished the race and Tuggeranong has come in. It's been a great race, 1,790 kilometres over 7 days, starting from the rocks in Sydney with 250 travelling people. I'm exhausted, so who knows how tired the real competitors are. It's been great. CitiPower has been thrilled with the response, both from community and particularly from media. The competitors have been absolutely spot on, both in behaviour, enthusiasm and their technical know-how. It's been a treat. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. CitiPower's thoroughly enjoyed it. We'll be back next year and we hope it'll be bigger and better than ever. We're sure it will. Thanks.
Oil may be becoming shorter in supply, but coal reserves on the other hand in Australia are projected to be in excess of 350 years. So the availability of electricity under present conditions is pretty well secure for the moment. The concern for ongoing oil production is becoming such a concern that even the oil companies are sinking hundreds of millions of dollars into alternative energy like solar power. In South Africa, the Shell Oil Company have produced a solar electricity plant. So although some may view a race like this CitiPower Sunrace as a bit of a gimmick, the push for developing this technology is a very real one and is being taken very seriously by those who understand the real implications of the future. The problems that faced electric vehicles at the turn of last century was that of battery power and the capacity to travel long distances. For the last 100 years, not much has changed in the distance that electric cars are able to travel.
You'd think by now, having covered this distance under the hot sun, they'd be thirstier than this. Take it out. Here we go.
And here they are, the winners, Lake Tuggeranong College. In 1899, Scientific American prophesied that whenever a storage battery or a system of storing the current is invented by which the weight of the battery is greatly reduced, there is certain to be an impetus given to the electric motor vehicle industry such as never been thought of.